Hello YouTubers, and welcome to the first of what will hopefully be a series of instructional videos on getting started with Midi, or Musical Instrument Digital Interface. First of all, I'd like to say a quick hi to keyboard wizard Michael Walthius, who's got some fantastic music out there and videos available on YouTube as well, and also to Dusty Puppy Dwight, who is doing some fantastic informational videos on using Cakewalk Sonar and how to get your music into a Midi format. First of all, a little bit about Midi. Midi is a control protocol that was developed in the late 1970s for synthesizers, but it does more than that. It can be used to control things such as guitar effects processors, vocal effects processors. It can be even used to control lighting. So I could lay out a complete rock and roll show if all the cues were the same and so forth with Midi and tell it when to turn lights on and so forth. Now, this is an important little caveat to Midi. Midi is a control interface. There is no audio information, there's no sound information that is transported in Midi. So, Midi tells notes when to turn on, when to turn off, how loud to play the notes. It controls things like volume, portamento, aftertouch, and so forth, but it doesn't have any actual audio data in it. Therefore, the quality of your Midi files is going to be directly dependent on the quality of the synthesizers that you are playing it through. Midi interfaces to other Midi devices by use of a Midi cable. The Midi cable is a 5-pin DIN connection which goes from the output of one Midi device to the input of another Midi device, and from the input of a Midi device to the output of another Midi device or the computer. There are many Midi devices out there, and if you are in the market for a keyboard or whatever to get started with this, you want to make sure that the keyboard at least has Midi in and out. It's a small round connection with 5 holes in it, and it should say on it, right on it, Midi in and out. I have several Midi devices here in my studio. Which include an Alesis QS8. This is a very nice synthesizer, by the way, if you're looking for one. Not that I'm selling mine, but this has 88 weighted keys. And weighted keys are very important because if you or someone that you know is learning to play piano, you don't want to go out and buy them the $99 Shopko Casio synthesizer or keyboard. And the difference being is that these are weighted keys. This keyboard feels just like a piano when you play it. And that's important because you don't want to ruin your wrists by not having the wrist strength to play a regular piano or a weighted key synthesizer when you sit down at it. So don't go cheap if you want to get into this. You want to start, especially if you are learning or your children are learning, you want them to learn with weighted full-size keys. Don't get the small keys, get the full-size weighted keys. Other Midi devices that are in my little home studio here, I've got a Kurzweil K2500R. This is another synthesizer. You think of it as a keyboard without the keys. It is completely controlled by Midi. You do, of course, have a lot of buttons and things that you can set on the front of it, but the actual note on and off information comes from Midi. The same thing with the Yamaha synthesizer above it. This is an MU90R. The reason that I like the Yamaha synthesizer is this one uses what's called XG, or Extended General MIDI. General MIDI by default gives you 128 instruments. Extended General MIDI gives you 700 plus instruments. Then the other thing that I've got up here is a Digitech Vocalist. This is a harmonizer. It's also controlled by Midi, and as I sing into my microphone, the harmonizer will take my voice, change the pitch of it, and spit it back out again, all controlled through Midi so that I get harmonies. The final piece in my Midi gear is a cheap, inexpensive Midi drum set, electronic drum set. Now, a couple of interesting things about Midi. Midi by default has 16 channels per instrument or per device. It actually makes a connection to your computer through a MIDI interface. Now, older sound cards included MIDI interfaces built onto the joystick port, and the joystick, you would have a special cable that plugged into the joystick port, and that would give you a MIDI in and out. I'm actually using a USB 4-port MIDI interface, which gives me 4 MIDIs in and 4 MIDIs out. This one is made by Midi Man. I never have any problems with it. It's just a rock solid device. Motu, or Mark of the Unicorn, also makes very nice MIDI interfaces. USB is plenty fast to control a MIDI interface because, once again, there's no audio data that's being sent across the MIDI lines. It's all note information. Turn the note on, turn the note off, hold the note for this amount of time, and so forth. The software that I use to drive all of it is Cakewalk Sonar. And if anybody's ever played with Sonar, or if they've watched any of Dusty Puppy's videos, this allows me to do MIDI editing. Each of these tracks is an instrument. Now, it doesn't have to be a single instrument. I could change instruments in the middle of the track, but best practice is to have one track per instrument. So I can tell Cakewalk Sonar which port I want the information to go out. So port 1 is my Yamaha, port 2 is my Alesis, port 3 is my harmonizer, and port 4 is the Kurzweil. So I can tell it I want to use the piano from the Kurzweil on port 4, channel 1, and that's where the sound that's where the note information will go. So by doing this, I can take and I can layer, I can make multiple tracks. So first I might go in and put in my piano part, and then I might go back on the next track and put in my bass part, and then on the next track I put in my horns part. The default for most MIDI gear nowadays is track 10, or channel 10, I'm sorry, for the drum track. So as you can see, you can be your own composer by going ahead and putting in the information one track at a time. So, I know this may have been a little dry, but we'll close with a little bit of MIDI music for you that's played through the system, and hopefully you enjoyed this video, you found it informative, and you will want to see more. I actually probably won't do any more until I get some feedback and see if anybody's even watching this. So, have a great day, YouTubers, and make sure you check out Keyboard Wizard, Michael Walthius, and also Dusty Puppy's information if you want some detailed stuff on MIDI how-tos as far as Cakewalk and Sonar is concerned. He's a great teacher. So, have a great day.